I always knew my role in our family. I was the one who fixed things. I was the one who showed up. I was the one who paid. It started when I was 18 years old and got my first real job at a grocery store. My mom called me 3 days after my first paycheck. She said the electricity was about to be cut off. She needed $120. Before I continue, trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Like and subscribe, then let's get into what happened next. I gave it to her without thinking. I thought that was what good daughters did. I thought love meant giving until it hurt. I thought sacrifice was the same thing as loyalty. I was 18. I did not know better. But that first payment was not a one-time thing. It was a beginning. It was the start of a pattern that would last for 9 full years. It would stretch across my teenage years, my young adult years, and deep into my marriage. It would cost me more than money. It would cost me my confidence, my peace, and almost my sense of self. But I did not know that yet. I just handed over the money and felt proud. I thought I was helping. I thought she was grateful. The requests did not stop after the electricity bill. They grew. A few months later it was the water bill. Then it was her car payment. She said her transmission was failing. She said she could not lose her car. She could not get to work without it. I understood that. I wanted her to keep her job. So I gave the money. Then she needed a new phone. Then she needed new furniture because the old couch was broken. I was 20 years old by then. I had moved into a small studio apartment. I was stretching every dollar. I was eating cheap meals so I could send her better ones. I did not complain. I did not want to seem selfish. My mom was good at making me feel selfish when I hesitated. She would sigh. She would go quiet. She would say things like, "Never mind. I will figure it out somehow." And I would panic. I would transfer the money. I would feel relief when she said thank you. But the thank yous got shorter over time. Then they stopped being thank yous at all. She started expecting it. She stopped asking. She started telling me what she needed. That shift happened so slowly I almost did not notice it. I met James when I was 22. He was warm and steady and calm in a way I had never experienced before. He listened to me without interrupting. He asked questions. He paid attention. On our third date, I told him about sending money to my mom. I braced for judgment. He did not judge me. He just nodded. He said, "How long has this been going on?" I said 4 years. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "And do you feel good about it?" I thought about that question for a long time. I said, "I feel like I have to." He looked at me carefully. He said, "That is a very different thing from feeling good about it." I did not understand what he meant that night. But over the next few years, I would come to understand it completely. James was the first person in my life who saw me clearly. He did not see the helper or the provider. He saw me. He saw the way I flinched when my phone rang and Mom's name came up on the screen. He saw the way I went quiet after those calls. He saw everything. And he remembered all of it. James and I got married when I was 25. It was a beautiful day. Small and honest. We paid for it ourselves. We saved for a year. My mom came to the wedding. She wore a bright dress. She laughed and danced and told everyone she raised such a wonderful daughter. People told me how lucky I was to have such a lively mother. I smiled. I held James's hand under the table. After the wedding, I thought things would change. I thought my mom would see that I had my own life now. I thought the requests would slow down. They did not. They got bigger. Now she called it family support. She said I was the only stable one. She said the others could not help the way I could. She always had a reason. Always a story. Always a deadline. The week after we got back from our honeymoon she called. She needed help with the roof. She said rain was coming through in 2 places. She sent me photos. The photos were real. The damage was real. I looked at James. He did not say no. He just asked how much. She needed $6,000. We paid half. $3,000. Right out of our honeymoon savings account. James never blamed my mom out loud. Not directly. Not in those early years. But he started keeping track. I found out about it much later. At the time, I thought he was just being supportive. I thought he was processing the situation quietly. I did not know he was building a record. He opened a folder on his computer. He labeled it simply. He called it, The Truth. Every time I made a transfer to my mom, he noted it. Every time I paid a bill in her name, he downloaded the statement. He saved receipts. He saved screenshots of text messages where she asked for money. He saved the conversations where she said she would pay me back. She never paid me back. Not once. Not a single dollar. But James had every request documented. Every promise. Every date. Every amount. He did not tell me he was doing this. He knew I would have told him to stop. He knew I would have said it was not necessary. He knew I still believed my mom would change. He was protecting me from a future I could not yet imagine. He was building the evidence for a case I did not know would ever need to be made. By the time I was 27, I was sending my mom $1,000 every single month. It was automatic. I set up a recurring transfer. It went out on the first of every month like a second rent payment. James and I had a budget. We tracked everything. But that $1,000 was always just there. Gone. Non-negotiable. Like a tax I paid for being born into the wrong family. On top of the monthly amount, there were extras. Mom had a medical appointment and needed to cover a deductible. I paid it. Mom wanted to visit her sister in another city. I bought the plane ticket. Mom said her kitchen appliances were old. I bought her a new refrigerator. Every time I said yes, she moved to the next request faster. The space between them got shorter. She stopped saying thank you completely by the time I was 28. She started saying, I knew I could count on you. Like I was a bank. Like my account was her backup plan. James watched this happen. He held me when I cried. He never said I told you so. He just held me. And he kept building the folder. Mom turned 60 that spring. She called me in January to start planning. She said she wanted a real party. Not a small dinner. Not a backyard gathering. She wanted a banquet hall. She wanted a live band. She wanted flowers on every table. She wanted 72 people there. She had already made a guest list. She read it to me over the phone. It included family members I had not seen in years, friends from her church, neighbors, co-workers, people she played cards with on Saturdays. She was excited. Her voice was bright. I had not heard her that happy in a long time. I felt the familiar pull. I wanted to make her happy. I asked how she was planning to pay for it. She went quiet for just a second. Then she said, Ashley, I am on a fixed income. You know that. I thought you could handle the costs. She said it like it was already decided. Like the conversation was about details, not about whether I would do it. I looked across the kitchen table at James. He was reading. He looked up at me. He saw my face. He closed his book. He knew. James and I talked that night for a long time. He was honest with me. He said, this is not a small thing. This is going to be thousands of dollars. I said I knew. He said, and she is not going to thank you for it. I said I knew that too. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, I will support whatever you decide. But I want you to go in with your eyes open. I told him I wanted to do it. Not for me. For the version of my mom I still hoped existed somewhere underneath the surface. He nodded. He said, okay. But this is the last time. I agreed. We sat down and worked out the budget together. The hall deposit was $2,000. The catering was $4,000. The band was $1,500. The flowers and decor were another $1,500. The invitations and extras came to $1,000. Total, $10,000. We transferred it. My mom thanked me once. She said, "Perfect. I knew you would come through." Then she started sending me requests about the color of the tablecloths. I planned almost everything. I called the catering company. I confirmed the band. I worked with the florist. I checked the guest list. I organized the seating. My mom gave opinions. She changed things. She wanted different centerpieces. She wanted a specific appetizer removed. She wanted the tables rearranged. I did it all. When family members called her to ask about the party details, she told them she had been working on it for months. She told them she had pulled it all together. She used the word "we" sometimes, but always in a way that made it sound like she meant her friends helped, not me. She never said my name. Not once. Not in a single conversation that I heard. My cousin texted me and said, "Your mom is so impressive. She threw this whole thing together by herself." I stared at the message for a long time. James looked over my shoulder. He read it. He put his hand on my back. He said, "She is not impressive. She is practiced." I did not respond to my cousin. I put my phone face down. I went back to confirming the final head count. The day of the party came fast. I woke up early. I drove to the hall at 7 in the morning to make sure the setup was correct. The florist was late. I called them. The band arrived and needed help with the audio equipment. I helped them. The catering team had a question about the timing of the courses. I answered it. I fixed 3 problems before 9 o'clock. My mom arrived at 10:30 in a new dress. She looked beautiful. She walked in, looked around the room, and said, "It looks nice." That was all she said to me. She did not ask how the morning had gone. She did not ask if I needed anything. She went straight to her friends who were already arriving. She hugged them. She laughed with them. I watched her from across the room. James came up behind me. He had driven separately. He was carrying a black binder under his arm. I noticed it, but I did not ask. He kissed my cheek. He said, "You did a beautiful job." I said, "She did not even notice." He said, "I know. Just wait." The guests poured in through the afternoon. 72 people filled the hall. The noise rose. The food came out in waves. The band played soft music between courses. Everyone was laughing and happy. I walked around the room making sure glasses were filled and nothing was going wrong. People stopped me to compliment the party. They said it was elegant. They said it was warm. They said my mom must have worked so hard. I smiled each time. I said thank you. I did not correct them. Not yet. Mom held court at the center table. She was glowing. She was telling stories. She was the queen of the room. And she looked genuinely happy. Part of me was glad. Part of me had done all of this just to see that look on her face. But another part of me was watching the clock. The speeches were coming after dinner. I had hoped she would say something kind. I had hoped that after everything, she would look across the room and acknowledge me. I fixed my dress. I found my seat next to James. He reached under the table and touched my hand. His other hand rested on the binder. Dinner wound down. The plates were cleared. The band went quiet. Mom stood up from her seat. She tapped her glass with a spoon. The room hushed quickly. 72 people turned to look at her. She smiled that big wide smile she had always been so good at. She thanked everyone for coming. She thanked her friends for their many years of love. She thanked her sisters for being her rocks. She thanked the staff for their excellent service. The room clapped after each name. She was warm and funny. The guests adored her. Then she paused. She looked toward my table. I sat up slightly. My heart beat faster. I thought, this is it. This is where she says it. This is where she tells everyone what I did for her. I prepared to smile. I prepared to wave. I prepared to feel proud for the first time in a long time. She cleared her throat. She said, "And I must thank my daughter Ashley." The room turned to look at me. I felt warmth rise in my chest. She continued. She said, "Even though she is a burden, she tries hard." The warmth inside me froze instantly. The room went completely still. I did not breathe. I heard a fork scrape against a plate somewhere. I heard someone cough. I heard the air conditioning hum. Mom laughed. It was a light laugh. A dismissive laugh. She waved her hand in the air like she was swatting away a compliment. She said, "She costs me so much money. She is so needy. But I love her anyway." There was nervous laughter from a few people. The kind of laughter that does not know what else to do. Some people looked at their napkins. Some looked at me. I saw pity in their eyes. Real, embarrassed pity. My face went hot. My hands went cold. I sat completely still. I did not cry. I did not move. I felt James's hand tighten around mine under the table. I felt the pressure of his grip. Steady. Certain. He leaned close to my ear. He said one word. He said, "Now." He picked up the binder. He pushed back his chair. He stood up. The room noticed. Mom saw James stand. Her laugh faded. She looked at him with mild annoyance. She said, "James, sit down. This is my night." James did not sit. He did not raise his voice. He walked calmly to the front of the room. He set the binder down on the table beside Mom's water glass. He opened it. The pages were thick and organized. Mom reached for it. James slid it just out of her reach. He turned to face the room. 72 people looked at him. The room was completely silent. He said, "I want to share something with everyone here tonight." His voice was calm, clear, like someone who had rehearsed this 1,000 times. Mom said again, louder this time, "James, sit down." He looked at her once. He said, "In a moment." He turned back to the guests. He held up the first page. He said, "My wife has been financially supporting this woman for 9 years." He let that sentence land. He waited 3 full seconds. Then he said, "These are 108 bank statements that prove it." He turned the pages slowly. He held each one up where the front tables could see it. He read the dates out loud. He read the amounts. 9 years ago, $1,000. 8 years ago, $1,000. The roof repair, $3,000. The car cosign, medical deductible, grocery transfers, vacation tickets. He named each one. He gave the date. He gave the dollar amount. He spoke quietly, but the room caught every word. People leaned forward in their seats. You could see people doing the math in their heads. You could see the expressions changing. Eyebrows going up. Mouths going tight. Mom stood behind James. Her face had gone pale. She looked around the room, searching for someone to step in. No one stepped in. Her sisters sat very still. Her friends looked at the tablecloth. James kept turning pages. He was thorough. He was organized. He had prepared for this night without me knowing. He had waited for the right moment. He had waited for her to swing first. And she had. James reached the section on the party. He held up the invoice. He said, "This party tonight cost $10,000. Ashley paid every cent of it." He held up the catering receipt. He held up the hall deposit confirmation. He held up the florist invoice. Each one had Ashley's name on it. Each one had the date from the last 3 months. He said, "Your host tonight is not the woman standing at the front of the room. Your host is the woman sitting at table 7 who has not said a single word." He pointed toward me. Every head in the room turned. I sat completely still. My hands were folded in my lap. My face was dry. I had run out of tears. I felt something different now. I felt a strange, quiet calm. Like a storm that had finally broken open. The pressure was gone. The truth was in the air. Everyone could breathe it. Mom made one more attempt. She said, loudly, "Those numbers are wrong. He is exaggerating." James turned to face her. He said, "Which number is wrong? Tell me the date. Tell me the amount. I will find the statement." She did not answer. The room was different now. The warmth that had filled it during dinner was gone. In its place was something serious. Something honest. Mom's friends who had been laughing with her all night were very quiet. One of her closest friends, a woman named B who had known Mom for 30 years, pushed back her chair slightly. Like she was creating distance. Mom's 2 sisters sat beside each other with their eyes down. They knew. I could see it in how still they were. They had known for years and said nothing. They had watched me pay and stayed quiet. James stood at the front of the room and spoke one more time. He said, "Ashley is not the burden. She is the reason this room exists tonight. She is the reason there is food on these tables. She is the reason your glasses are full." He closed the binder. He looked at my mom directly. He said, "And the next time you open your mouth to describe your daughter, I suggest you choose your words more carefully." The room did not clap. It was too heavy for clapping. But the silence said enough. James walked back to our table. He looked at me. I stood up. My legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone else. He put his arm around my shoulders. I leaned into him slightly. We walked toward the exit together. Mom's voice came from behind us. She said, "Ashley, you cannot leave. We have not had the cake yet." I did not stop walking. I did not look back. I heard her voice get louder. She said, "Ashley, I am your mother. Come back here." Still I did not stop. James pushed open the side door of the hall. The night air hit my face. It was cool. It smelled like grass and rain. We stood in the parking lot for a moment. I breathed. I breathed again. James did not speak right away. He just stood next to me with his hand on my back. Then he said, "We left the binder on the table." I looked at him. He said, "On purpose. Let them read it." I nodded. We walked to our car. I got in. He got in. He started the engine. We drove home through quiet streets. Neither of us said anything. But for the first time in years, the silence between us felt clean. We got home at 9:30. I changed out of my dress and sat on the couch in comfortable clothes. James made tea. We sat together. He did not ask how I was feeling. He just sat close. Eventually I said, "How long have you been building that binder?" He said, "Since the roof." I counted back in my mind. That was 7 years ago. He had been collecting evidence for 7 years without saying a word to me. I asked why he never told me. He said, "Because you were not ready to see it. You needed to believe she would change." I thought about that for a long time. I said, "When did you know she wouldn't?" He said, "The day she called us from vacation. She was using the ticket you bought her. She called to ask for spending money." I remembered that call. I had laughed it off at the time. I thought it was funny. James had not laughed. He had gone to his computer and opened the folder and added a new entry. I looked at my husband sitting beside me on our couch. I thought about how quietly, how steadily, how lovingly he had been protecting me for years. I reached over and held his hand. Mom called the next morning at 8 o'clock. I let it ring. She called again at 8:15. I let it ring again. At 8:30 she called James's phone. He answered. He put it on speaker. Her voice was different. The loudness was gone. She sounded small. She said some people had called her after the party. She said things were being said online. She said her friend B had sent her a long message. She said her sisters were not picking up her calls. She said she was sorry. She said she had not meant to embarrass me. She said she was stressed. She said she was overwhelmed. She said she loved me. James listened to all of it. When she finished, he said, "I am going to be very clear with you. Ashley's accounts are closed to you. The automatic transfers are stopped. The credit card we had on your account is cancelled. Do not contact us asking for money. Do not send messages through other family members. Do not post anything on social media that involves Ashley's name." Mom started to speak. James said, "We wish you well. But we are done." He ended the call. He put the phone face down on the counter. He looked at me. I nodded once. I picked up my phone and went into the banking app. I found the recurring transfer. $1,000. First of every month. 9 years old. I pressed cancel. The screen asked me to confirm. I pressed confirm. The transfer disappeared. I stared at the empty space where it used to be. James came to look over my shoulder. He said nothing. I put the phone down and opened a new savings account. I transferred the first $1,000 into it. I labeled it mine. Then I labeled a second one future. I felt something shift deep inside my chest. Something that had been tight for so long finally released. Like a knot that had been pulled so many times it finally came loose. I was 29 years old. I had been sending money since I was 18. That was 11 years of giving. 11 years of making someone else's life comfortable while quietly shrinking my own. That morning I decided something. I decided that the second half of my life would look completely different from the first. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. Out of self-respect. Out of love for myself. Out of love for James. The response from family was slower than I expected. Over the next week, calls came in. Some family members called to check on me. Some called to check on Mom. Her sisters called me on the third day. They said they had not known it was that bad. I said nothing to that. If they had opened their eyes, they would have seen it. They apologized. I thanked them and kept the call short. One of Mom's friends sent me a private message online. She said the binder had been passed around after we left. She said people read the statements. She said the table had gone very quiet for a long time. She said some people left early. She said Mom had cried at the end of the night. I read the message twice. Then I closed the app. I was not glad that Mom cried. I was not celebrating her pain. But I was glad that the truth was out. I was glad that 72 people had seen it. Not because I wanted them to judge her, but because for 9 years I had carried this alone. Now it was in the open. Now it was real. Now I did not have to pretend anymore. I started therapy 2 months after the party. My therapist was calm and direct. In our first session, she asked me to describe my childhood. I talked for 50 minutes without stopping. At the end she said, "You were parentified at a very young age." I had not heard that word before. She explained it. She said some children are made to take on adult responsibilities before they are ready. She said it creates a belief that love must be earned through service. That you are only valuable if you are useful. I sat with that for a long time. I thought about the 18-year-old who gave her first paycheck away and felt proud. I thought about how I had confused sacrifice with love for my entire adult life. I cried in that session. Not sad tears exactly. More like recognition tears. Like finally seeing something clearly that had always been blurry. I went back every week. I learned about boundaries. I learned about self-worth. I learned that no is a complete sentence. I learned that guilt is not the same as responsibility. I learned that I was not a burden. I had never been a burden. I was a person who had been taught to believe I owed everything and deserved nothing. I shared pieces of my story online 6 months later. I was nervous. I wrote it carefully. I shared the basics without names. I described the party. I described the binder. I described the moment James stood up. The response was immediate. Comments came in from everywhere. Women said, "This is my story too." Men said, "I did this for my father for 20 years. People said, "I stopped the transfers last month and I still feel guilty." People said, "You gave me the courage to have the conversation I've been avoiding." The post was shared thousands of times. Strangers sent me private messages. Some were thanking me. Some were telling me their own versions. Each one different. Each one the same underneath. A person who gave too much for too long to someone who took without seeing them. I responded to as many as I could. I told them what my therapist told me. I told them their peace matters. I told them guilt fades but freedom grows. I told them to keep their receipts. Not just the financial ones. The emotional ones too. Know your worth. Document the pattern. And when the moment comes, do not be afraid to let the truth speak. 1 year after the party, James and I hosted a dinner at our home. 12 people came. Friends who knew us. People who showed up without being asked. People who brought food and washed dishes and made us laugh until our sides hurt. I cooked for 3 hours and enjoyed every minute of it. No one took credit. No one lied. No one had to manage anything. We just sat together and ate and talked and were happy. At the end of the night, when everyone had gone home, I stood at the kitchen sink washing the last of the dishes. James came and stood beside me. He picked up a towel to dry. We did not talk. We just stood there together in the warm kitchen light. I thought about the banquet hall. I thought about the 72 guests. I thought about the 108 statements and my husband's voice cutting through that silent room. It felt like another lifetime. It felt like it had happened to a younger, quieter version of me. That woman was brave. She just did not know it yet. This version of me knew. This version had James beside her and money in her own account and peace in her chest. This version was free. This version was finally, completely, beautifully home.